race fans, welcome back to my little show about motorsports and stuff that I like to call In the Pits with me, StockCar Scott, here on the YouTube during the racing season when I feel like it. Wow, it has been a while since I felt like doing a show. Don't know if I really want to do one now, but I do need to get caught up before I get too far behind. So here goes. Buku stuff has happened since my last episode of In the Pits with me, StockCar Scott, back at the end of July. I will start with a nearby track, Evergreen Speedway, and remind you their last race of the month there in July was a Northwest Super Late Model Series 125 lap event won by young Washington State racing phenom Miss Brittany Zamora in her number 52 CW11 Supergirl Super Late Model, which is crew chiefed by her dear old dad Mike, who was a standout driver in the old NASCAR Northwest Series back in the day. Evergreen Speedway also had a reunion night for the old Northwest Elite drivers, and it was good to see Gary Lewis's return after a few years off from driving that popular orange number 73. Though Gary's return at Evergreen was not what one might call stellar, the following weekend at State Line Speedway in Post Falls, Idaho, the 73 team more than made up for it with a win in the Idaho 200. The same evening, as you can see on my YouTube channel, I was at my favorite local short track, South Sound Speedway, for the Miller 200, which was won by Alan Kress. It was his first win in a couple of seasons and led to another win 2 weeks later when the Northwest Super Late Model Series returned to South Sound Speedway for their second 125 lap event of 2018. Between the two Alan Kress wins, I attended Evergreen Speedway again for the K&N Pro West Series 175. There was supposed to be a super late model, I think 100 lap race, but because of rain and lightning in the area after the mini stocks ran in the rain, NASCAR took over and nothing else but the K&N guys ran that evening. Derek Thorne won that night in the number 6 Sunrise Ford of Bob Bruncati. Of course, there will be other K&N West news I'll have to mention a little later. After all of that racing, and all of that racing you folks can see on my YouTube channel, I took a few weekends off from local racing simply because there really wasn't any late model racing close enough for me to go to that I really wanted to see. So I spent my birthday, which was my 62nd birthday. Yes, now I can get into most tracks for a reduced senior price. Anyway, so I spent my birthday and my Labor Day weekend at home watching the big NASCAR throwback weekend at Darlington and doing a little catching up with my favorite major league sport. Of course, NASCAR is now in their playoffs, but since the time I did the last episode of my little show about motorsports here, my oldest brother's newest favorite driver, Chase Elliott, got his first Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series win at Watkins Glen in his number 9 Hendricks Camaro. So I have got to give Chase a shout out or my brother would just disown me. There you go, Richard. Hope you are enjoying your DVD of the race you received for your birthday and haven't worn it out yet. Of course, the Toad and Happy won races at Pocono and Michigan in August, as well as the Toad's brother won one at Bristol. But then Bad Brad got on a tear for 3 wins heading into the playoffs. including the Darlington 500 on my birthday. I hope everyone got to see that race with all of the historic throwback paint schemes that made the weekend really special. Brad Keselowski's third consecutive win was the following week, or 2 weeks later, I should say, at the opening playoff race at Las Vegas, where many Northwest race fans traveled and suffered through the desert heat to see not only Bad Brad's Cup win on Sunday, but also the first Xfinity win by the stock car driving watermelon farmer Ross Chastain. I hope that win leads to other opportunities for the young Floridian. The Xfinity Series has also begun their playoffs with Junior Motorsports' Justin Allgaier and Joe Gibbs Racing's Christopher Bale clearly the front runners, with Elliott Sadler in his last full year of racing being the sentimental favorite. Both the Xfinity Series and Monster Cup Series are in action this weekend at Dover, but I would be remiss if I didn't mention the NASCAR Roval weekend at Charlotte. Folks that like to hate on my favorite big league sport hated it. And folks like me that still support NASCAR found it, well, interesting. The Roval was different, I will give you that. But it didn't seem to do a better job of filling the stands at Charlotte. Now, road course racing may be more prominent in NASCAR's future, but I hope with track contracts coming up for renewal in 2020 that NASCAR will look into dumping dates at tracks that are at perceived cookie cutter tracks and find a way to race at some of the premier short tracks in America, like Kern County and the old Nashville Fairgrounds, where they used to race years ago, and New Smyrna in Florida. Don't get me wrong, I still want to see NASCAR at Talladega and Daytona twice per season, but more short tracks might help NASCAR reconnect with more fans. But TV ratings are dropping for all of the major sports. People just have more ways to be entertained these days. So it is up to us as fans to show others how entertaining our favorite sport is and explain why we appreciate the hard work team members put in to make each event possible, no matter how large or how small. And another thing I heard last week while watching a really good late model stock car race there at on Fans Choice TV this weekend was an announcer that said, "Take a child to the races." Really? If you love racing and you want to see it around for many years to come, take a child to the races. Our sport needs new eyes on it if it is expected to continue. So maybe once a year, round up a bunch of neighborhood kids and head to the races. Heck, they get in free. All you got to do is sort of supervise them. Let's see, what have I not touched on today? Oh, F1. My favorite, Lewis Hamilton, has won 4 of the last 5 Grand Prix to lead the driver's standings by 50 points over Sebastian Vettel, who won the race not won by Hamilton. But it was a shame, though, last week that Hamilton's teammate, who was on the pole for the race in Russia, Valtteri Bottas, had to, towards the end of the race, he had to pull over and allow Hamilton to win the race in Russia per team orders there during the race. And that's one of the things that I really don't like about Formula One. Well, anyway, the next Grand Prix is Saturday. Saturday night here on the left coast at 10:30. Pre-race at 9:30. Race at 10 p.m. in the evening, even though it is Sunday in Japan where the Grand Prix will be happening. Last Saturday night, I watched a 200-lap late model race at Martinsville, Virginia on Fans Choice TV. They had a 42-car field of late model stocks, which is different from super late models somehow, I don't know. And the winner got $25,000. So there were several familiar names for those that follow independent drivers like Bubba Pollard and Josh Berry, who drives for Dale Earnhardt Jr., Timothy Peters, who used to drive in the Camping World Truck Series, won a couple of times there. He's from Danville, Virginia, as well as Peyton Sellers, who was running for a Virginia track triple crown, where 3 tracks got together to form something extra there. Also, he is also from Danville, home of a NASCAR Hall of Fame driver, Wendell Scott, no relation to Stock Car Scott. He's from the Grease Lightning fame. He was portrayed by Richard Pryor many years ago. Other Virginia natives included C.E. Falk and Philip Morris, who was also running for the Virginia Triple Track Crown, as well as the National NASCAR Late Model Championship. Todd Gilliland, the young NASCAR up-and-comer, was there, plus Myatt Snyder, son of race broadcaster Marty Snyder, as well as Lane Riggs, son of former NASCAR driver Scott Riggs, who I once saw win a Busch, now Xfinity race at the unfortunately closed Nashville Superspeedway in Middle Tennessee on my honeymoon in 2002. Scott Riggs at the time was driving the number 10 Nestle's Quick Ford Taurus. But I digress. But to digress even more, my wife and I went to the first race at that track the year before and saw Greg Biffle win his first NASCAR Busch, now Xfinity Series race on his way to the Busch Rookie of the Year award for 2001. I think he won like 4 or 5 races that year. But back to Martinsville. Stacy Purrier started on the pole, but I didn't hear how fast he lapped the old half mile to get there. You know, the race all started nicely enough with Josh Berry and Purrier there on the pole. Of course, Berry was in Dale Jr.'s number 88, and he led much of the first part of the event. But by the end, there were over a dozen cautions, including some scheduled breaks that they had for tire changes, and 3 green-white checker attempts before a winner was declared by NASCAR. And I was really surprised to see Martinsville was still using an orange cone in the backstretch to line up the field on restarts. There was also a college car there. A local college there in Martinsville fields a late model stock car that is completely maintained by college students working towards careers in NASCAR. Also, there was a nice mix of all 3 brands of cars with the bow ties, blue ovals, and devil cars. A late caution brought about a restart on lap 198, and on that one was the first of 3 chances to finish the race under green. But Sellers and Berry up on the front row got together, spinning Berry to the back and out of contention. Oh, then on the second lap, second attempt at a green-white checker, I should say, young Lane Riggs made what have to be called a pretty stupid move when he jacked up Peyton Sellers, who was in front of him, crashing him into Bubba Pollard and taking them both out. And then Bubba went over to have words with the young Riggs. You know, I could have sworn I heard someone yell at Riggs that the young fellow was driving way over his head or something like that. NASCAR didn't take too kindly to the confrontation, and Bubba ended up getting ejected from the track. The last attempt at a green-white checker finish ended in yet more torn-up late models, so NASCAR had to revert to timing and scoring for the final call, which was C.E. Falk over Corey Haim for the big $25,000 win. It is amazing how many hundreds of thousands of dollars in equipment got torn up so Falk could win that $25,000. And of course, Corey Haim in second place was not at all happy with the outcome of NASCAR's call. The one Northwest tie-in of the evening was that Hannah Newhouse was on the MRN broadcast team as a pit reporter. She did a really good job. I didn't notice any ums or ahs like you hear me do, as she gave her professional sounding reports there from the pits during the race. Jeb Burton, sometime NASCAR driver and son of Daytona 500 winner Ward Burton, was there to add color to the MRN and Fans Choice TV live stream event from Martinsville. It was fun. I enjoyed it. I also tried to watch some of the racing from Tucson Speedway on Fans Choice TV, but my cat required medication and we both ended up traumatized. Tucson had what looked like Hornets, Pro 4 pickups, modifieds, and outlaw late models that included Herschel McGriff Jr. finishing second to Ricky Bogart. But the quality of the stream that I was watching, it looked like it was from someone's cell phone, and other distractions kept me from really enjoying the race there at Tucson Speedway. Of course, the other big news came across Facebook late Saturday night from Meridian, Idaho, when we all read about Hailie Deegan and her first win for a female in the NASCAR K&N Pro Series East or West. Highlights during the Sunday NASCAR Charlotte Roval broadcast showed the young driver from California earning her first NASCAR win with a bump and run over her teammate on the last lap there on the quarter-mile track in Meridian in Turn 2 underneath the water tower. The replay of this is tomorrow on NBCSN at 10 a.m. Be sure to set your video recording equipment so you can tune in and see history. Well, that about gets me caught up with racing. Oops, wait a second, I forgot. I almost forgot my trip to Yakima. The first trip that I made to Yakima this year, the middle of last month, for the West Coast Late Model Series Better All Auto Sales 100. It was great to get over to Yakima for a night of racing a couple of weeks ago to see Randy Marshall Jr. win the race and Garrett Huffines win the season championship for the West Coast Late Model Series. Check out my video on YouTube, the YouTube channel, where you can also see Spirited Hornet and Hobby Stock championship races from that night. while you are there at my channel, which is called StockCar Scott here on the YouTube, you should check out the 9 races from the championship night a couple of weeks ago at South Sound Speedway. Riley Watson won the 100 lap feature for super late models at my favorite little 3/8 mile track, as well as the season championship for that class. All other divisions, divisional championships were settled that night because of rain the week before, and all 9 races were run by 9 p.m. It was a great night of racing at South Sound Speedway, and I won, let's see, a 2-liter Mountain Dew with my program number. There you go, my program that I get. And of course I had some chili cheese fries for the last time this season. And I really look forward to returning to that wonderful venue for racing in the spring of 2019. And of course I look forward to seeing racing at other venues in this area next year, but hopefully especially at Yakima Speedway, where I will be on Sunday for the umpteenth annual Fall Classic for super late models, pro late models, and hobby stocks. I'm sorry I can't make it to all 3 days because I do have responsibilities here in Seattle that limit the time that I can be away. But you should go. You should go all 3 days, at least Saturday and Sunday. Saturday will be full of racing with heat races for all of the already mentioned classes, and a feature for the Royal Purple Northwest Mini Stock Tour. These guys always put on a really great race, and I wish I could go. So I'm wearing my new Ken Legault PT Cruiser, see if you can see it real good there, PT Cruiser number 22 shirt to show my support for a favorite mini stock driver. I hope you go Saturday. Other mini stock drivers scheduled to race include Brad Rhodes of Pasco, Lane Sunholm of Kirkland, Rodney Sankey of Spokane, Michael Fritz of Seattle, Reggie Gill of Tacoma, Rod Helmuth of Ballard, Tanner Dates of Pasco, Armando Gomez of Spokane, Eric Angelitis of Auburn, Patrick Mullins of Natchez, Brandon Little of Sela, Mark Krieger, who gave no home, listed there, Jeff Kessler of Seattle, Don Brown of Ellensburg will hopefully be there, Brendan Tarr of Spokane, Jason Majors, the guy that writes the rules of Puyallup, Derek Almy of Spokane, Kyle Matthews of Olympia, Joshua Henney of Yakima, James Fink, who did not list where he was from, Rich Hatton from Spokane, James Bays from Ronan, Montana, Scott Murphy of Spokane, Terry Strong Jr., also of Spokane, Josh Childress of Wenatchee, Devin Matthews of Tacoma, Rusty Webb of Spokane, Brandon Brock of Briar, Rich Christman of Spokane, Bryce Rupert of Spokane, and Frankie Voles Jr., also of Spokane. It should be a great event. Then, scheduled for the big day on Sunday will be hobby stocks coming up first after the opening ceremonies at noon with their race. Drivers scheduled include Mike Burkhardt of Spokane, Cody Graham, the hobby stock champion there at Yakima. He comes from Ellensburg. Mikey Denton of Yakima will be there. Jerry Miller of Yakima. Chris Morang of Yakima. Gerald Nash of Spokane. Billy Scribner of Yakima. Matt Miller of Spokane. Alan Tuckness of Spokane and Jeff Stevenson of who knows where. Then come the pro late models that are a compromise between the Wenatchee Valley Super Oval late models and the West Coast late model series cars. And that driver list includes Nama Lang of Linwood, Matthew Stevenson of Okanagan, British Columbia, Canada, Todd Connell of Yakima, Andy Beeman of Yakima, Dave Schmick of Pasco, Shannon Hensley of Hermiston, Oregon, Ben Briggs of Yakima, Mike Brooks of Olympia, Rick Gerard of Hermiston, Oregon, Rich Peters of Yakima, Dan Nelson of Kennewick, Bobby Stewart Jr. of Yakima, Jim Zorzula of Union Gap, Randy Marshall Jr. of Natchez, Max Schroeder of Tacoma, Chris Miner of Ephrata, Josh McKenzie of East Wenatchee, Alex Ludman of Waterville, Garrett Huffins of Sela, Mark Schultz of Spokane, Trevor Florick of Auburn, Eric Hargraves of Yakima, Brad Huey, who runs down at South Sound, Dan Lothar of Boise, Idaho, Justin Dunnigan of Diamond Lake, BJ Tedrick of Yakima, Corey Wolf of Ronan, Montana, Dave Hayworth of Vernon, British Columbia, Canada, and Donnie Wannett of Woodinville. Donnie is coming off of a win, a big win, on the last night of super late model racing at Evergreen Speedway, where he also won the Budweiser Crown Series of races. Then, after the 100 lap main for the pro late models, will be the Fall Classic for super late models that has been shortened this year by 50 laps, which pleases me because that means I'll be able to get back to my bed 50 laps sooner. The list of drivers hoping to be victorious in the Fall Classic this year at Yakima Speedway include Agni Howell of Kalispell, Montana, Tyler Brown, newly crowned State Line Speedway champion of Kennewick, Wade Bland of Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, Owen Riddle of Natchez, Ed Thompson of Kennewick, Chad Fitzpatrick of Lake Stevens, Dan Obrist of Portland, Oregon, Jim Franklin of Kennewick, Taylor Riddle, also of Natchez, Tim Babcock of Kennewick, Zach Beeman of Yakima, Grayson Raz of Lake Oswego, Oregon, Shane Harding of Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, Jason Frazier of Issaquah, Brooke Schimmel of Woodland, Christopher Koch of Hillsboro, Oregon, Rob Touchette of Lake Stevens, Pete Harding in what's probably going to be his last Fall Classic of Langley, British Columbia, Canada, Dylan Caldwell of Napa, of Idaho, Travis Bennett of Ellensburg, Garrett Evans of East Wenatchee, Donnie Wannett doing the double, Dave Garber of Spokane, Buck Knoll Jr. of Yakima, and BJ Tedrick of Yakima. Also, Jay Sauls of Tacoma was on the list, but it is my understanding that his team's family has suffered a tragedy. But if he does race, you can just bet he will be highly motivated to win. Well, that just about does it, don't it? Seems we are all caught up now on super late model and late model racing, as well as hobby stocks, mini stocks, and K&N, Pro West. if you have any questions about what races were run and who won, just visit my channel called StockCar Scott here on the YouTube and watch a few of the videos. I've gotten better at including finishing orders at the end of each video, so there you go, get you a little information there. And of course, any video that I capture at Yakima Speedway on Sunday will be added to my channel as soon as possible. Before I go, I do want to give a big shout out to Northwest Race Report's Late Model Mondays. That's the show on Facebook each Monday at about 7 p.m. that if you are a race fan up here in the great northwestern part of the country, you need to be watching. Terry and Jeff know a bunch about the Northwest racing scene, and you could learn something while being entertained. They are one of the many reasons I have been neglecting in the pits, because they allowed me to sit in a couple of episodes of Late Model Mondays. And now I won't be happy until I am doing a live stream show on Facebook. Well, the end of the year is near, so I have buku time to think about it. And while I think about it, I'll still need to do at least another show this year, sometime after Fall Classic, to get caught up on that. And then there'll still be some NASCAR, which hardly gets any coverage up here, and of course F1, which, being global, you would think would get a metric ton of coverage up here. But I'll have that to talk about. So one never knows when I might get motivated enough to do this again. Until then, you can see me and the races I go to here on the YouTube. And I'll probably produce another of these little shows about motorsports and stuff I like to call In the Pits with me, StockCar Scott, you know, when I feel like it. I hope everyone goes to the Fall Classic this year, because as you well know, all races matter, but especially this Fall Classic. Thank you very much for watching. I appreciate it very much, considering that's like 33 minutes or so. You ain't never getting back. TTFN, folks.